Oh, please. So I'm being videotaped on this thing, so I might act, you know, more professional and, like, serious. Nah. Okay, so quick background. Class of '83, graduated in '82 because they said you can't graduate from Brown in 3 years, to which I said, watch me. There were 3 of us women that started the COG-SCI concentration here at Brown, which was the first entrepreneurial thing I did without knowing that it was entrepreneurial, because you just did that stuff here at Brown. And then I went to Bell Labs, which most of you probably don't even know what that is, right? So, you know, the company AT&T, back in the old days, like when your parents were kids, AT&T was a monopoly, and they had a lab called Bell Labs that created the transistor, cell phone technology. The Big Bang Theory was Arno Penzias, Nobel Prize, all that stuff. And it is no longer around. So think of like Google X, or whatever they call their labs now. It was like that. So I went there where I was paid to basically play, ask questions, build stuff, do stuff. So it was kind of cool. And then I went to AT&T, and then there's a lot more. But anyway, Blue Lobsters is my meme for innovation, because innovation is a combination of, to me, the network and serendipity, putting them together. And in Maine, where I mentally live every day and physically live 3 months of the year, where we live, we have a higher percentage of blue lobsters. They're 1 in about 2 million. And I am in Pemaquid, Maine, and I'm there because my freshman sophomore, whatever, roommate here studied at University of Maine's Darling Marine Center, which was in Damerscott, right next door. And so I would go up and visit her. And so there's the network piece, and then the serendipity piece is when the Marine Center is done with their lab work on these blue lobsters, they literally dump adolescent blue lobsters into our harbor. So that's why we have a higher than usual incidence of blue lobsters. Hence, network, serendipity, innovation. Okay, that's lovely. So what are we here for? Kebab and curry. All right. And interrupt me. I'm not good with the like lecturing thing. I'm originally from New Jersey and New York City, so you know, interrupt, I'll interrupt you, and hopefully we'll get everything answered. So basically, you're starting a business or thinking of starting a something, and people will talk about what's your business model. To which I say, if you don't have a value proposition, you don't need to worry about a business model, because there ain't no business. So let's talk about ones that matter. So first, I'm going to back up. What the heck is a business model? Very simply, it is how you create, deliver, and capture value. And if you're a social entrepreneur, value can mean money and impact too. So, well, and I shouldn't say if you're social. No matter what your entrepreneurial vendor, if you're not providing meaning and purpose, you won't make money and profit. It's just how you measure that. So basically, it's how you make meaning for customers and money for you so you can keep making meaning. It's really simple at a basic level. It's not simple when you start doing it. This is based on a book by a very dear friend of mine, Alex Osterwalder, who wrote this book called Business Model Generation, which I helped him create. I would encourage you to get it. Get the physical book. Don't just get the ebook. It's a gorgeous book. You will write in it. You need the physical experience. And then he wrote another book, which I edited, on value proposition design. Again, get the physical book. So that's what this stuff's based on. So did this skip one? No. Okay. I'm not going to get into detail today on the business model because, again, I want to focus on the value proposition, which is in the middle where the lovely gift box is the value proposition. What do you offer your customers that they view as valuable? Not what you want them to view as valuable, not what you think should be valuable to them. Are there any philosophy majors in here? Okay. Kant's divine ought, right? Some of you. So Kant was this philosopher dude. He had this concept of divine ought, like this is how things ought to be. You might have heard your parents say that. You ought to do this. So it's not what you want the customers, what you think they ought to need or ought to do. It's what they really do want to need or do. And then who are you marketing to? Who are your customer segments? Okay, how many of you guys actually still use liquid and not pods? Oh, phew, I got to start updating this stuff, right? So years ago, Tide, Procter & Gamble, they also make Head & Shoulders and other stuff, big consumer company. They've been great at marketing stuff to us to buy and spend money on. And the guy that was in charge of them, who was, again, Lafley, insisted that their people, engineers, chemists, everybody, go out and watch people use their stuff. Just don't do a focus group. So Tide is a great example of this. It's been their #1 brand. It's a leader in the industry. Unilever came out with a Suds or something like that. They started losing market share. They did a focus group. And from that, they did learn people wanted cold water Tide. Like, I don't want to have to use hot water, whatever. But they didn't learn a lot. So get out there, watch people doing this. Because, of course, those people that were designing this and on the Tide team, they probably never did their laundry. That's a whole nother topic. So they went out and watched and noticed when you poured the liquid into the cap, for those that actually measure and don't just pour it in, that looks good. When you poured it into the cap, you poured it into the machine and you put the cap back on, the soap just dribbled all over the side of the bottle. And these bottles were a mess and sticky and oi, okay? So they asked people doing laundry, and I'm just gonna be blunt, they asked women, because women were generally doing the laundry, hey, isn't that kind of a pain? And everyone's like, well, yeah. Nobody ever brought up in a focus group the fact that pouring it out and putting the cap on made a mess on the bottle. And if they hadn't gone out and watched customers using their stuff, they never would have discovered this was a big problem. So there are 2 points for that. #1 is try to use your own stuff. You know, if you're going to market and sell it, use it yourself. And watch people using your stuff. So they redesigned the cap and the top, got a big patent on it, and this really helped lift Tide's sales. So think about the jobs that your customers want to do. And I know you might not think they're jobs, but you know, if I have to go to the drugstore and it's pouring, my job is I want to get to the drugstore, I want to get in and out fast, preferably not soaked, and not have to wait a long time. Drive-through. Okay? So those are actually jobs I need to do, so it's hard to shift your thinking that way. And then what are the context and constraints? So here's a good one. So one of my clients is Progressive Insurance, you know, Flow. So I did this with them, and I should have changed it, but I didn't. You'll see why later. So, all right, guys, I'm hungry. Well, there's a plethora of opportunities of what I could eat, right? Oh, I'm in a rush. That starts narrowing it down. I'm not going to Red Stripe or something like that. I need a little quick serve, whatever stuff. Oh, this is where Progressive kind of looked at me. I'm driving, so I can only use one hand. I was like, oh. But so now I need something quick and modular, easy to eat with one hand because I'm driving. And oh, I'm not going to be able to stop to eat for a while. So the job is I'm hungry, but all these are constraints that change the terms and conditions of my job, right? And no matter what you're offering, your customers have constraints and there's a context. If they're doing something in the morning, their behavior might be different than in the afternoon. So if you're offering a product or service, in the morning I might be more bright and happy and eager to, you know, look and investigate. And in the afternoon, you know, I just need to get this done before I get home, to get to the gym, to go do this, to go do that. So I'm not going to spend the time. So that's really important when you're thinking of what it is you're offering, when and where and how. So one of my examples. So I live in New York City. I am a caterer. I'm really not, but this is an example. I am a caterer-y. So I'm a caterer, and I've got this lovely fancy lunch that I'm taking to a client. I am going to have to move, me and the fancy lunch, by ground, because it's in the city, from my business to the customer. I am going to take the subway. So I'm limiting it. I'm not taking an Uber or the bus or a taxi or a limo or using a drone. Okay, I'm going to take the subway. So the desired outcome is I want to move me, right? Catering business to customer. I need to minimize or lessen the bumping, jerking around of me and this fancy lunch. I'm taking the subway, which has starts, stops, bumps, swerves, all that stuff. Well, what does that have to do with delivering your food? Well, it has to do with how I package it. Do I need to keep it hot? Do I need to keep it cold? If I'm taking a taxi or an Uber, I don't maybe have to package it up as compactly, tightly as if I'm taking the subway. So again, guys, context constraints. Really watch how you're doing it, because as human beings, we're not good at telling you that. You have to watch us and then we can tell you, because some stuff we just take so for granted we don't know. So what you want to look at is how can you understand the customer's point of view with what you then can deliver. So in true open-minded liberal fashion, we're going to pretend we're Hebrew or Arabic, and we're going to look at this from the right to the left. And I want you to focus on the circle first. Let me give you an example. Air, but, and buh. Sorry, I used to do work with BP, and we used to say buh pay, because it was cool. I don't know. All right, so let's pick Airbnb. They originally started out for just individual people. Well, what ended up happening is business travelers became a very large segment of the business, so much so now that you see the hotels are going nuts because they're losing market share. So let's look at this from a value proposition standpoint. As a business traveler, I would like to get higher value for my money, obviously. If I'm going to be somewhere for a while, I want to meet interesting non-work related people. Might be nice not to have to be stuck with the work all the time. I might want to get to know the local area because I'm going to either be there a lot or maybe I'm moving there. And I would like to feel more at home than in a Marriott or a Hyatt. Okay, so that's ideally the jobs that I would like to have, that I have that I'm not able to meet today. Well, what are the pains? What's preventing me from doing that? Number one, it's hard to find, if you don't know someone in a city, it's hard to find somebody, and you don't know them, you know nothing about them, you don't know if they're cockroach infested or if everything's white, and so you can't put anything down anywhere. You don't want to feel like you're imposing. You're concerned about maybe not having Wi-Fi, TV, this, that, whatever. And fundamentally, how do you know you can trust this person? Which is also the host's issue too. But if somebody gave me a great solution, and this is where it's going to be really hard, you guys. When you're thinking about what would a customer gain if they had a great solution, the key words are if they had a great solution. It is not if they had my solution, okay? Because yours may not be great. And yours may fit your needs, but not theirs. So, if the Lord were to drop down from heaven the solution for the customer, that's what we're talking about here. But it's really hard to get yourself out of your own product mind. But say there was some wonderful solution to this dilemma. Well, I would be more relaxed. I might get a better night's sleep because I'm more relaxed. I would get a break from work. I'd save money. I would learn about the area. I would meet interesting people. And I wouldn't have to worry about the trust thing. So the real fundamental, Airbnb's value proposition is all around trust. Trust was the most important thing. And then there's other stuff, I stay in unique places, I meet new people, and then as a host, I get extra income, I can use my assets, I meet people too. So think about, does this help you think about what are the jobs, what are the pains people have getting those done today? And you also need to think, we'll get into this in a second, about rank ordering those, because not every pain is the worst and not every gain is the most important. Tesla. So Tesla had a very interesting, not profitable yet, but interesting and buzzworthy value proposition and business model. They went after the top end of the market first. And most would say, well, why don't you go over mass scale? Well, if we can convince people to buy a Tesla instead of a Beamer or a Porsche, and we can get that to work, that also means more profit, so then we can start going down market. We have more money to do that. And we've created the allure and all that, and you too can have a Tesla for only $80,000. Their initial target market were upper middle class men, and I really should change the number. It's more than those earning over $100,000 a year. And what were the jobs? So I'm an upper middle class male, not really, but let's pretend. So at a fundamental level, when I'm looking at a car and I'm deciding what kind of car to get, I might want to make sure that I look successful. You know, don't buy the white Beamer. So I want to look successful. I would like to obviously move from one location to another. So if I'm getting a car, it actually has to move and get me places. I might be commuting to work. I want to be different from everybody else. My personal values. I am buying a $100 and some thousand electric vehicle because of my personal values. Okay, so I'm just going to be snotty for a minute and say, you know, you could put that money into other things that would help the environment. But anyway, okay. And I want to go long distances. So that's my job list. My problems are, I don't want to stop every 2 minutes to charge. I don't want my battery dying. You know, if I'm in the South and I'm running the AC all the time, what does that do to my battery performance, right? I want to make sure it's safe, so I don't want this like NTSB whatever rating thing down at the bottom. I don't want it looking so goofy people are laughing at me. I don't want to buy something and then the next day it drops in value 80%, like most cars do. And related to the charging, there isn't the infrastructure, okay? So those are the problems I have. And if I had a great solution, I'd have this great car, it would go long distances, charging would be super fast, everybody would ooh and ah, I'd get out of the car and they'd rush around me. So I'd have all these wonderful things. And what Tesla said is, okay, we can take care of the charging, it'll charge faster, we can't deal with the infrastructure through the car, but they are dealing with that. We'll make this so you can have 5 people in the car, because you might have a family. We're going to have the highest, it's the NHTSA safety rating possible, and a long range. So the biggest, because we're going to ask you to prioritize those jobs. We're going to hit the biggest pains, not all of them, the biggest ones, and we're going to give you great performance, a sleek design, and a high-touch feel. And I just got to tell you, they have the huge monitor in them. I just think that's very distracting. It's beautiful, which is why they needed to be self-driving. And what are they doing? They made a basic model, gave you a long warranty, and clear sets of options. They've done a bang-up job from the consumer standpoint. The business model has issues, but, okay? Why am I'm going backwards because I'm pressing the wrong button. Apple Pay. Do we need another example, or you'll have access to all these slides. The reason I want to quickly touch on Apple Pay is Apple is fabulous at innovation, because innovation, a lot of it is taking what's out there and putting it together in different ways. Invention is creating something brand new. Innovation is invention plus commercialization, right? So if you look at, I'm going to backtrack to iTunes. We had MP3 players back then. They weren't elegant and gorgeous. We had Napster, right? And we could pay for that, and it was cumbersome, and they basically did all that with existing stuff, but just made it elegant and easy. Apple Pay, with the iPhone 6 and the watch, we've got those beacons out there already. The Touch ID was already out there. Passbook was already out there. And Find My Phone was already out there. So they took stuff they already had, packaged it up differently, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is just too cool. And it is. So, do you have any questions yet?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to quality control, with all of these models and applying this structure, is that something that you deal with later on? Is that something that you work on in the beginning as you're doing this construct? How relevant is it? Uber popped into my head because of wow, Uber and then problems, big problems later on. And I'm sure there's other examples. And also, another question I had was, what, just structurally, what are things that you can reinvent or tweak as you go along? Is this fluid all the way from beginning to end, or are there things you have to lock in for success to happen?
Question number one, quality will depend on what you're doing. So if you're making a medical device, quality better be there from before day one, right? It depends on how important quality is to your customers. So as we look at jobs, pains, and gains, where does quality fall in that? Which will then let you know in your first MVP, do you have to put that in to the utmost level or not? So it'll depend on the product and service and customer expectations. And then there are clear ones, like if it's health or food, you kind of want to make sure it's there. This whole thing is an iterative process. So I have several phrases, one of which is experiment, learn, apply, iterate. The day you stop doing that is the day you die. Experiment, learn, apply, iterate. Okay. Experiment, learn, apply, iterate. First of all, your first business model and your first value proposition are going to be wonderful till they meet the first customer, and then it's all going to change, okay? And if it doesn't, either you are an amazing gift from God, or you don't have a clue what's going on with your customers. There's got to be something that's got to change. And I'll pick on AT&T since I was at Bell Labs, right? AT&T stopped experimenting, learning, applying, iterating, and hence got bought up by others. Google still has 90% on search. Amazon's actually killing that search market. So if your company is going to succeed in the long term, you have to keep doing this over and over and over. It is just how you run the show. It is always iterative, forever. So when you're looking at jobs to be done, think about, at a high level, tasks to do, problems to solve, needs to satisfy. There are kind of different ways of chunking it up. There's functional stuff. Like if I have a cell phone or a smartphone and it can't make a call, it's probably, it's kind of basic, guys, right? So there's certain functional things that people have in their jobs that they want something to do for them. They want landscaping, a display, they're a doctor, they need to diagnose something, whatever. There's certain functions. Then there's the social job. And this is really important and becoming more and more important. I don't want a solution to this thing I have to do that's going to make me look like an idiot. I don't want a solution that's going to make me look like, okay, we'll let you go on this one, but we're going to watch you, right? I want to look important. I want to look powerful. I want to look like I know what I'm doing. Don't neglect social jobs that people need to have done. Like when iPhones came out and then Samsung came out, a big social job was the iPhone provided was it was an iPhone. It wasn't one of those other things. And that may sound snotty, but that's really still very important. And then there are personal, emotional things. I want to make sure this thing is going to work, that I can trust it, that I've made the right decision. It's not going to blow up the house. Those are important things, right? And then also think of who else is involved. If it's business to consumer, sometimes it's easier because, I'm going to make this for you. You're the decision maker. You write the check. It ends with you. But if I'm selling this to a company, business to business, I could have, I'm head of marketing and I really want this package from, designer A. Well, then procurement gets involved and says, I'm sorry, we're not paying that much for them. Here's our list of approved people we buy from. And then there's my VP who actually writes the check. So that can get more complicated, and you've got to make sure you have their jobs in mind when you're designing this. So you can have several jobs for different types of people. So you can have a value proposition for the end user, for the decision maker, for the one that's got to write the check. Pains, frustrations before, during, and after. So, you know, with Amazon, which delivers daily to my home, sometimes, depending on availability, they don't take the box that's perfect for your product. They just take what's easiest to get down. So there are times I'll get like a little thing in this big box with all this crap bubble stuff I have to get rid of. And I still buy from Amazon, but I hate that. Now I have a job to do I didn't want to do. So you want to think about frustrations people have before, during, and after. Because now I got to get rid of the box and the bubble stuff. And is bubble stuff recyclable or not? I don't know. I throw it in recycling anyway. What are obstacles, risks, bad outcomes? So undesired outcomes, problems, traits are part of your pains, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work well. Oh my gosh, I needed like a friggin' PhD to set this thing up. I can't get rid of it. It's ugly. It needs these extra steps. I look like an idiot. So there's all that stuff around things that don't work well, and that's why I don't have a good solution today. There could be obstacles. How many of us read instructions before we put something together or take it out of the box or anything? You do?
Sometimes.
Okay. You're an engineer. Most of us don't, right? So it's got to be somewhat self-intuitive. So an obstacle could be if I actually really have to like read all this stuff. It could be expensive. And expensive isn't just money. It's time. It's convenience. Like, does it come with all the stuff that I need to put it together with? Did it come charged? That stuff, right? I need like a village to set this thing up or use it. Okay? And then there are risks, like it could blow up the building. We could get hacked. We could lose data, whatever. So those are the different ways to think about problems. And again, this can vary by time of day, by day of week, by weather. So for instance, one of my clients, I do strategy and innovation consulting, was a historical society. And they view their competition as museums and historical societies. And one of their target markets was moms with little kids. And I said, hold it. Your competition are play dates, the zoo, the movies, the park, right? Because there are a lot of things I could do with that time. If it's cold and raining, I'm going to do something more indoor. So you're probably not competing with the zoo and the park. Now it's museums and theater. Right? So think of those constraints in context because it changes what the customer's options are. Now, if God gave them a great solution, which may not be yours, lo and behold, oh my gosh, you're not it, what are the required gains they have to have? So basically like, you know, if a phone can't make a call, that's just basic, right? Got to have that. Then there's some expected gains, like a smartphone should let me on the net, I should be able to get apps, etc. Then there are desired gains, things I would love to have. I don't necessarily expect them, but oh, I'd really love to have them. Those are cool gains to be able to provide. And then there's the unexpected gains, like I never would have thought of that, or it's so sleek, or so beautiful, or so easy. Most solutions we come up with, or that really hit, you look back and say, duh, okay? So when you look at something and you go, duh, that's my key for, oh, that's really hit the spot, the duh thing. But you at least need to meet required expected gains. And I will tell you, sometimes just meeting basic required and expected gains without overcomplicating it is huge. Because, you know, I really want something that will just do this. I don't want something that's going to do this and this and this and this and this. So since some of you are engineers and computer scientists and whatever, just because you can provide that feature or bell or whistle doesn't mean you have to. okay? Simple is lovely. Then you take your jobs that you've learned about, so you take their jobs, not your jobs, pains and gains, and prioritize those. Because not everything is the most. And you're also not going to be able to meet every single one. So if you can get your customers to prioritize and understand that, maybe you only go after the top one job, or maybe 1 and 2, and the top pain, and try to achieve the top gain. But if you do that really well, the other stuff really doesn't matter as much. So you don't need to answer all. You just need to answer the most critical. And then look at, I'll pick on Tesla, how can you either eliminate or mitigate the pains? There's some pains you will never be able to eliminate, but how can you mitigate or make it easier? Some you can eliminate. How can you create the gains? And then what does that actually look like? What are you putting into the market? Now, one of the points of confusion can be, are the pains the cup's half full and the gains the cup's half, wait, I said that wrong. Are the pains the cup's half empty and the gains are the cup's half full? You know, are they just the answer to the other? Sometimes they are, but not always. And I would urge you guys to not just think of yin-yang, but get deeper to, especially in the gains, an outcome. So not just an output, like, you know, I have more time. I have more time to do something that I want to do that's meaningful. Or now I'm able to do this because this does that. So it's kind of hard to describe, but try to think beyond just the opposite negative kind of thing. When you're talking about how to relieve pain, you want to think about, and some of these will be yin-yang type stuff, but what can I do that will help them save money, time, effort, frustration? Okay, because that's usually what some of the frustrations are. I can't promise them sunny days if that's what their real pain is. Move, you know. Can I make them feel better, not feel as frustrated? Can I fix stuff that's not performing? Can I add a new feature? And one thing I do want to say, there really is something to be said for duct tape and WD-40. Sometimes good enough isn't good enough, but sometimes, guys, good enough truly is good enough and of great value. So don't overcomplicate the world for you. Eliminate obstacles, things, eliminate social risks, financial, you know, what can you do to make life easier for them? And probably the #1 thing most of us need, unless you're talking about basic life stuff, which is most of the world, but we don't really pay attention to them, is time, right? Money can be an issue. Resources may be an issue, but time is fixed. We ain't getting back what got spent. And so if you can make things easier and more convenient and reduce the time to do something, key. You guys, you're students and you even know that, let alone like you're married with kids and a job and a this and a that and, you know, soccer things and all that, okay? Be precise on how you're going to relieve the pain. Like what exactly are you going to do that's going to make this pain either less or non-existent? And look at what they're doing before, during, and after. So one of my clients was in the plumbing business, and it's commodity. So I asked them if they ever gone out and watched, you know, what do people buy the most of? And have you watched plumbers using your stuff? So they went out. It's amazing, you guys, how many people build companies and then forget to go out and watch people use their stuff. They don't order their stuff. They don't return their stuff. They don't talk to their call center people. So they went out and watched a plumber and noticed, for instance, that one of the most common things is under the sink, the U thing or whatever, I don't know, but it's that thing under the sink. And what happens is you get the thing out of the package, you then use goop, that's a technical term, to attach, take the old one off, attach the new one on, and then your hands are a mess, so you wipe them. So they came back and said they did this. So I was like, so what if you packaged a package of the most commonly used plumbing things with goop and like a wet one, a wet rag. Oh my gosh, big seller, okay? It's like that simple and that obvious. So what are they doing before, during, and after? Gain creators. So it's kind of the opposite side of the pain in a way. But what can give them more time or feel like they have more time, free up time? What can give them more money, resources, et cetera? So I'm not going to go through this because Liz and Jonas are going to put this up there for you guys anyway. But again, guys, be specific. It's really hard. It's easy to say, oh, we're going to, have a great user interface. Super duper. What does that look like? Does that mean that this thing's in the upper right and it's blue and it's formatted this way? Get as specific as you can. And bear in mind, gains are not just things that it does, it's how it makes you feel and how people look at you. And then, what is it you're offering to do this? It can be physical, like stuff you make. It could be intangible, like people, stuff, or bits. And it can be bits. I tend to think of the world as, not that I'm binary, but there's atoms and bits, and then there's atoms and bits. And think about that. Are you working on atoms or bits or both? Because that has implications on how you deliver and capture value. What you offer today, like, okay, so I might have stuff around I could put together, or what should I create to do this? Now, you will come up with this, you'll go out, you might preload this with your view of what it is, and you'll go talk to customers, and you'll start filling in the customer side and then what you think. And then you get out there in the world. And, okay? So stuff you thought was important isn't, it's not even on the list, and stuff you thought that wasn't on the list is on the list. I mean, it's all going to change. And that's totally okay, because everything you think is a job, pain, or gain is a hypothesis until you get out there and test it and know. And then 6 months later, it's back to being a hypothesis.
I have a question about the 6 months later part. Like, what is the time in this whole process? Like,
from when you get a real product out there to when you start iterating on it?
Right, like how long should you be iterating? How long should you be testing? How long should, like, what are the proportions for all these things?
I think, so first of all, you start by testing the most critical hypotheses first. So it's if this isn't the key job and I'm wrong, then everything falls apart. Okay, so you test the most critical assumptions first. And then you can start, and you do an MVP or something. Then you start testing the next down, and then you may be done. You may meet the need that seeks the critical mass you want, and you start putting it out there. And you get everything in order, and then you start all over again. So it depends on the product or service. But you need to have a mentality of always testing your value proposition, because once iPhones got out there, guys, reset all our expectations, right? So now we expected a lot of different things. And if they hadn't gone out and revisited that, well, I don't know if they did. They can dictate. But anyway, this is a process you need to be regularly doing for the life of your company. How often you need to do it depends on what the company does. Prototype, prototype, prototype. So there are lots of ways to prototype. You can draw on napkins, and let me tell you guys, drawing on napkins is a totally valid, wonderful way of prototyping. I mean, seriously, co-create with your customer and draw. You can do animation, you can do 3D modeling, you can do little like Mad Lib things or whatever helps, and does that really meet the need? Also, if it's physical, I'm into Lego. Get your Legos out and build what you think you might want to offer, what does it look like, et cetera. But prototype, even if it's an animation, you don't have to make the thing perfect. Get feedback. Humans deal better when we see and touch and do with something. We are not good at coming up from scratch. So I'll react better to something you want me to buy if I see it and touch it. And I'm going to stop there. This is a nonprofit that was started by Sidney Kushner, class of 13, while he was here at Brown, that takes kids with cancer and pairs them up with a champion. So it could be like one of the Celtics Or there's a girl in Pittsburgh that wants to do ballet, and so someone from the Pittsburgh Ballet Company is her champion and helps them. And it just, there's a whole long story here that I'll tell you some other time. And you can go to ccchampions.com, and it's an amazing organization from one of you kids. But what we did there was mapped out what is the jobs, pains, and gains. And I think that's it. Do I have something else? Nope. So that's really quick. There's a whole book on this, value proposition design. Like I said, you should get it. I don't get anything for it, so it's not like I'm getting so wealthy off this stuff and you should buy it, because otherwise you could just write me a check. Anyway, here's my Venmo. Any questions, you guys?
How do you know if you're asking the right questions to people to use?
You might know somewhat by the response. I think you also can know if you're asking by watching them and understanding constraints. And ask open-ended questions. I think if you ask open-ended questions, you will get answers to things you wouldn't have thought to ask. Because once people get talking and realizing, they open up. And the more questions you ask why too. You know, like you'll ask me something and I'll tell you and you'll, well, why? Well, why? There's a reason it's that 5 why rule or whatever. You know, it really gets to it.
Do you think the best space to do that is face-to-face, or do you think that we could use technology in a way that could also solicit the same type of?
Both.
Oh, really?
I think it's a both. I think in some cases you definitely need there's nothing like the face-to-face because, and you can use technology and do Skype or something like that too, and you can send out surveys that'll get you some level and then go down. But watching someone's body language and their eyes when they're starting to explain why something's a problem, you can see that and say, maybe they're really not sure, so you know how to follow up with that. Which isn't to say that you need to do face-to-face with 1,000 people. You know, pick a few and know you're going to be wrong on something. But the more you do, the less wrong you will be.
I just have a follow-up to your question. Do you think focus groups are a version of that, or is focus groups a really structured kind of thing?
I personally think the way focus groups are done,
measuring metrics, ways to inform or quantify your value proposition. Do you have any recommendations?
yes, so actually built into the model are, for each hypothesis, you come up with, you know, we believe that, I'm trying to think of a real client, or we believe that men that make over $200,000 a year are going to want to buy an electric vehicle that does this and this. We're going to test that by looking at, maybe before we have a car, are they buying those high-end cars? Some of those are, what's the kind where it's gas and electric?
Hybrid.
Yeah, that one. You know, and then we will know we're successful if this happens, and that's your measure. So it could be stuff like, if over 20% of the people we ask say yes, then we think we're on the right track. Or if over 30% of the people choose the blue color, then. So your metrics might be pretty qualitative-ish, and the more you keep doing it, the more quantitative they get. But there's a whole litany of stuff on metrics. But qualitative metrics are still okay, I think, in the beginning.
Hi. No, this is great. Thank you so much. I've been hearing about your talks, and I've been wanting to come for a while. I'm Heidi. I work with the Technology Ventures office here.
Oh, with Kate?
I work for Katie Gordon, and she and I are the two biomedical life science people.
Oh, cool, yeah.
So, you know, I think what's so wonderful about this as well, and to sort of second the motion, is it's really important to also get nuances, nuanced opinions. Because I think when things are too overgeneralized, like
Right.
in economics in general, hence the field behavioral economics now.
Because we're not rational human beings?
That's right, because when you say, oh, this product should sell to anyone making over $100,000, life is so much more complicated
Exactly.
than that. So the more detail and the more questions you ask, which you were
Get specific.
Get specific so you get the nuances and really find out, okay, does everyone over $100,000, can they really afford to buy this Tesla? Or is it a subpopulation of that, or should we move the number? So I think in doing startups and value propositions and business models, sometimes the questions are too high level,
Right.
and students don't drill down enough and look for a little bit more of the nuances in life, which I know comes with experience too. So, but just to be aware of that.
The other thing is we don't know ourselves well. That's why you need to watch. So you might ask me if I would like this or that, and if we're sitting right here and you ask me, do you like this or that, I'll tell you what I think right now. Now, if you ask me that question when my kids were little and they're in the minivan and I am trying to be on a conference call and they're in the back and I gotta make sure I get something for them to eat and a snack before we go to the field and yada yada, I might have a totally different answer for you, which is why context constraints and see them using it. So like Toyota, when they were coming out with the minivan, I could be wrong, it might have been Chrysler, but Toyota put cameras inside a few of the vans to watch what really happened in a minivan. Because a mom would say, or a dad would say, we do this, this, or this. Well, that's when they learned about making square things, because juice boxes are square, not round, and how to space out the seats because kids were cramped in, or they were moving, or they're throwing stuff in the back and doing this and all that. People think texting is a distraction. Have a kid in the car. So by watching people's behavior in a minivan, they were able to redesign the minivan. And it was very successful for a period of time. So that's why you have to watch, because we don't know what we're doing sometimes. Not in a bad way, but.
I think spontaneity is right on when people are spontaneous, because I know that there was a student that asked the question about focus groups, and having been involved in a few myself, when you're in a contrived situation, people tend to be more uptight and may not be as open and honest.
There's peer pressure.
And they may think of what is the best answer for this, which
True.
Happens with surveys all the time too. So focus groups, and you're always wondering who's behind that. You know,
who's behind the screen
you
watching you?
Mirror, and you're wondering who's behind that mirror. So, anyway.
Any other questions?
In this process, have you ever had a big surprise working with a client or doing a project in terms of outcome, or a big surprise in terms of what you thought based on what happened? And what did that teach you? How useful was that?
Oh, very. So I've had several big surprises. I've had clients with big surprises, like actually what they thought was a big need, the customer could have cared less about. It really wasn't a need. It wasn't an issue. And I've had clients that then discovered it wasn't an issue and that was the end of it. Or the better clients discovered that wasn't an issue, but this was a big issue, right? So what I've seen them discover is either nuances to what they are, or that they got it totally wrong, and they need to do a big pivot. There's another really important learning I've seen, and I just had this recently with a client, where they were looking at the jobs, pains, and gains, and they could come up with a solution. But what actually would end up happening is they were by eliminating and mitigating certain pains, they were creating new and different pains that were worse. And so a lot of times when you're building a product or a service, regular or social, think through consequences. Because great, I just made this easy for you. But in the process of doing that, I made these 3 things harder or almost impossible. And that's really important to think through. That's one of the biggies that most people don't bother to think about. You know, gee, you made this, what's the consequence of that? I made your life easier. No, you didn't. You're welcome. Any other questions? Cool. So Liz and Jonas will put this up somewhere and let you know where it is. Get the books, get the real books. And if you have any questions, You can ask them or you can ask me. They know how to get a hold of me. Okay, thanks.